Pleasure to have Professor Shivashish Ghosh, and he will tell us about his recent work he has been doing about understanding this towards universal detection of bipartite entanglement. And just to mention, you can please, you are free to unmute in between if it is very urgent, or otherwise you can also mention at the end of the talk. So Shivashish, the please.
Okay, so let me first thank the organizer of these institute seminar days, and Sayantan kept asking me to give this talk, but I was somewhat busy with other things, and sorry for this delay. So this is a topic which in our group we have been looking into for years. So this is regarding developing some scheme of detecting entanglement, particularly to begin with for bipartite systems, in a way so that the detection scheme shouldn't depend upon the information of the states. Okay, so let me try to motivate. Entanglement is considered to be the most important resource which enable us to outperform various information processing tasks like teleportation, dense coding, etc., which are impossible in the classical world. Now, so the point is that whenever some resource produces entanglement, it needs to be distributed among far apart parties, and during this distribution, some noise is being introduced because of interaction with environment, and therefore, in sometimes what happens is this entanglement gets completely lost. So what we need to know is whenever there is a source which is producing entangled state to me or to the people who are working in labs, the question is how to figure out that the state that has been supplied is indeed an entangled state. Okay. So now there are mathematical tools for detecting entanglement in a given system. The system may be a system of two spin-half particles, a system of two harmonic oscillators, or so on and so forth. But all those schemes, they depend upon the information that we have about the state. So we need to know the state a priori in order to come up with a scheme of detection of entanglement in that state. And this, it puts forward a kind of extreme hurdle to experimentalists, because every time somebody gives me entangled state, I need to know the state beforehand, and thereby I can try to see whether it is entangled or not. And as I said initially, that unless it is entangled state, most of these information processing tasks cannot be done with that. So efficiency cannot be obtained. Okay, so this is this generic, you can look at this figure, this is the generic scenario. Here is the source which produces this state AB, which is rho AB, is a density matrix, and then A is being passed through some noisy channel, and B is being passed through another noisy channel, so that this now the state rho prime AB is being shared by two far apart labs, Alice's lab and Bob's lab. So this is the preparation. So what Alice and Bob, they need to do by performing measurements of some operations on this A part on our lab, and similarly for Bob, to figure out whether this rho prime AB is entangled or not, irrespective of what is the channel action here and here on A side and B side, and irrespective of what was the initial state. So for all states rho prime AB, can we develop a scheme of detection of entanglement in rho prime AB? That is the universal entanglement detection scheme. So I'll briefly talk about some of our recent works in this direction. So the first thing I'll talk about is a measurement device independent scheme for detecting entanglement in a system of two qubits. That means a system of two-level system, like a system of two spin-half particles or so. So this measurement device independent scheme means that irrespective of the way the measuring devices are working, whether there is a noise or imprecision, etc., irrespective of that, we can determine whether a two qubit state is entangled or not. And then, so this scheme involves 4 copies of the two qubit state to be taken in one go. The second scheme that we will talk about briefly is to use the notion of weak measurement, where 2 copies of the 2 QB state these are required in order to determine whether this is entangled or separable. And finally, I'll touch upon our this ongoing work which will be put up recently in the archive, is about detection of entanglement in 2-mode Gaussian states, which are very, very important from practical aspect. Okay, so this is a brief outline. I may not go through all the details of this outline. So I'll just give you some basics which will be required to understand this notion of entanglement weakness operator. Okay, so let me start with the idea of a composite quantum system. So here it is the simplest one, where we have a quantum mechanical system S, which consists of 2 subsystems A and B. So you can think of this A and B to be, for example, both of them are 2 quantum harmonic oscillators, or both of them, let's say, 2 photons with a polarization degree of freedom, or whatever. So we know that every quantum mechanical system is associated with a Hilbert space H of S, and in this case, when it consists of 2 subsystems A and B, the Hilbert space HS is nothing but this tensor product Hilbert space, HA for subsystem A, tensor product HB for subsystem B. So these Hilbert space HA and HB, they can be of finite dimension or infinite dimension. So we can think of an orthonormal basis psi I A for the subsystem A, for the subsystem Hilbert space HA, and similarly for phi j B for the subsystem Hilbert space HB, so that this tensor product basis psi I tensor product phi j will be a product orthonormal basis for the tensor product Hilbert space HS. Okay, so any pure state, which is a pure state projector psi, it can be written as a linear superposition of these product state bases with this normalization factor, because this is a normalized pure state. And we know how to detect entanglement in any such bipartite pure state, is that you can figure out a basis for A system and B system, this E case and F case, such that this psi AB can have a diagonal form with these coefficients lambda k's, which are non-negative, and the number of non-zero lambda k's will be known as the Smith rank, and this will be psi AB will be a product state if there is only one lambda k which is non-zero and rest of them are 0. Okay, and this is the way of figuring out entanglement in bipartite pure state. Okay, now when I say, so this is for the pure state. For mixed state case, if this is a density matrix which is a mixed state, which is basically a mixture of projections on pure states. So if this mixed state rho can be written as a mixture of tensor product of density matrices of subsystem A and subsystem B, so tau A and eta B, alpha alpha the indices, then I say rho is a separable state. So that means 2 parties, Alice and Bob. Alice is in possession of this subsystem A, Bob is in possession of subsystem B, so they can prepare their own subsystems and communicate classically to prepare the state rho. So if rho cannot be written in this form, separable form, whatever be the choice of basis of Alice and Bob, then we say that this is entangled. Okay. So now I need to have a parameterization of my states. So for that, I can start with this product basis IA JB, and then I can use this dictionary order. So this ordered pair G alpha can be represented by this J minus 1 dB plus alpha, so that this this product state J comma alpha can have this representation J minus alpha d beta plus alpha, just for a representation sake. So this ds, this denotes the set of all density matrices of this bipartite system. Okay, and you can think of a generalized Gelman basis for any d-dimensional system, and this Gelman basis has the property that these lambdas, these Gelman basis elements are Hermitian, they have 0 trace, and the 2 Gelman basis elements are trace orthogonal. Okay, so now so therefore any bipartite state now I can write as a combination, real linear combination of these dA dB whole square minus 1 number of Gell-Mann matrices together with the identity matrix. So the identity matrix is required for traciality condition. Okay. So you can see, you can think of this thing that any density matrix of this system, ds, it can be thought of as an element of this this Euclidean space of dimension dA dB whole square, right? And this satisfies the positivity constraint that so this satisfies the positivity constraint, and you can show that the ds, the set of all density matrices, this is a compact set as well as a convex set. Okay, and pure states are basically extreme points of these compact sets. Okay. Right. So now I can consider the set of all separable states of the set of density matrices, which is a basically subset, which is again a compact and convex subset, and the product states, projection and product states, are again extreme points of the set of all separable states, ds separable. So the question is, given any state of ds, we'll have to decide whether rho, the state rho, is entangled or separable. And it is known that this is a very, very hard problem computationally when the total dimension dA times dB is greater than 6. Okay, so that is the background for bipartite system. Now there is a mathematical result by which we can show that we can come up with an operator, an observable, which will detect entanglement in a state. So for that we need to go through a little bit about this Hahn-Banach extension theorem. So again, ds separable is a closed and convex subset. I mean, it's of these ds, the set of all density matrices. Okay, and here so ds is basically a compact set of these Banach space of all bounded linear operators on the Hilbert space H of S, and with this inner product, so which is trace of Q dagger R. Okay, so choose any entangled state rho from ds. Then Hahn-Banach extension theorem tells you that there is a hyperplane depending upon this rho, which separates rho from ds separable. In other words, there exists a Hermitian operator W rho depending upon rho, such that if I take average of W rho with respect to sigma, where sigma is any separable state, it is non-negative. Whereas for this rho, this average value of W rho with respect to rho is negative. And we then say that W rho witnesses entanglement in rho. So pictorially, you can see that this red colored region is your set of all separable states, and this violet color region is your set of all states. Okay, and then you take a state rho here, a point here, and then you see that you can come up with a separating hyperplane, this red one, which separates the set of all separable states from this rho. Okay, and we say that this perpendicular to this hyperplane, this W rho, is an entanglement witness. And look at here, this entanglement witness cannot detect entanglement in rho prime, because this will give you non-negative overlap, I mean average value. So in order to detect entanglement in rho prime, you need to push up these separating hyperplane, this red one, towards this blue one. Okay, so you see that this notion of entanglement witness, it is a state dependent operation, and it cannot detect entanglement. It cannot witness entanglement in all states of the system. So that is a problem. Okay, so yes.
Can you give a feeling for the witness operator?
Yeah, so here it is an example. Here I'm giving an example. So let's say that I have this maximally entangled state phi plus, okay, which is this 1 upon root d, this II. So I tensor I. And now I apply this transpose operation. So transpose you can think of like, this reflection. Okay. So this transpose operation, which acts on the B part of the state AB. So if I apply this transpose operation, you can see that this W basically it becomes, it has the spectral decomposition. So it has eigenvectors Jj, which are product states, eigenvectors psi plus Jk, which is nothing but Jk plus Kj by root 2, and eigenvectors psi minus Jk. So the first two set of eigenvectors have positive eigenvalues, and the last set, the psi minus Jk, has negative eigenvalues. Okay, so this you can guarantee that W is a Hermitian operator, no doubt of it. Now, if I take overlap of this W with any product state, you will see with psi phi, you will see it is non-negative. Now, because its overlap with product state is non-negative, if I take convex combination of projections on product state and take its overlap with W, it will be again non-negative. But if I take overlap of W with these states, psi minus 1, 2, which appears here in the last one, psi minus Jk, you see that its overlap is -1. So therefore, this W detects entanglement in these states psi minus 1, 2. And psi minus 1, 2, by looking at this 1, 2 minus 2, 1, it is indeed an entangled state. So you see that this W, it is a Hermitian operator which detects entanglement in these entangled states psi minus 1.
But it is strange, it depends on the state itself.
Yes, yes.
So,
yes.
so you'll have to change it for every state that you want to state.
Exactly. I mean, most of these times you will have to change for every state. So, and that is the drawback, at least for experimentalists, it's a real drawback.
I see, because they may not know the state already.
Exactly.
So then it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a notion of optimal entanglement weakness operator. So optimal means that you look for an entanglement weakness operator which can detect entanglement in the largest class of states, even though it is not the set of all entangled states, but the largest class of states. Okay. And as you can understand by looking at this picture, the picture I mentioned earlier, that basically in order to look for optimal entanglement weakness, you'll have to look for the separating hyperplane which will touch the boundary of the set of all separable states, and that is a non-trivial job. Anyway, so we know how to figure out optimal entanglement weakness, at least in some of the cases, right? So in our work, we are not interested in optimal entanglement weakness. Rather, we are interested in universal entanglement weakness. That means, weakness operator or some kind of Hermitian operator which can detect entanglement in all the states of the system, and if not all the states, at least a very, very large class of states, entangled state, it can detect. So that is the idea of universal entanglement weakness. Okay, so here is the idea of entanglement weakness. So basically the idea is, if there exists a finite set of observables, W1, W2, Wn, acting on these, copies of tensor product Hilbert space. So first one is N1 copies of H, A, N1 copies of HB, then N2 copies of HB, HA, N2 copies of HB, so on and so forth, such that these inequalities, average values with N1 copies of the state row, N2 copies of the state row, etc. So at least one of these inequalities should be violated. Okay, then we can say that this row is entangled. And if all of them are satisfied, we say that it is separable. So basically, we should look for a finite set of such Hermitian operator W1, W2, Wn, okay, such that these conditions are either all satisfied or at least one of them are not satisfied. So this will give us this notion of universal entanglement weakness. Okay, right. Okay, so there is also a notion of nonlinear entanglement weakness. Maybe I'll skip with that. So basically, I'll show you the figure. So nonlinear entanglement weakness, you see that this blue one is the separating hyperplane, which is optimal entanglement weakness, but it's a hyperplane, okay, linear one. The nonlinear one is this W rho prime, which is a curved one. So you can, as you can see from this figure, this curved one can detect entanglement. Okay, it is a better one because it can approximate the boundary of this green one, the boundary of these separable states, in a much better way compared to this linear one, this plane one. Okay, so that is why people do look for nonlinear entanglement weakness. Okay, but again, there is no guarantee that it will be universal. In fact, we don't even know how to come up with a nonlinear entanglement witness which is universal in nature. Okay, so as you can see, this figure tells you that I have drawn several such nonlinear entanglement witnesses, but finitely many, W prime, W double prime, etc., which can somehow, embed, within which the set of all separable states can be embedded. So if I can find out those set of finitely many nonlinear entanglement witnesses, I am done. Okay, so let me go straight away to our result. I'll not have time to give details about it. So so I'll start with the first one, which is measurement device independent witness of 2 qubit states. So this Aguisiak et al., they have provided a Hermitian operator WU acting on 4 copies of your 2 qubit system. So C2 cross C2 is our 2 qubit Hilbert space. So 4 copies of that, such that any 2 qubit state rho AB, for any 2 qubit state rho AB, we have the following condition. So you take the overlap of WU with respect to 4 copies of your 2 qubit state, it gives you determinant of the partial transposition of rho AB. So you take a density matrix, this is 2 qubit density matrix, rho AB, write it in some basis, maybe in computational basis, and then apply the transposition on one side, namely the B side. Okay, so that will give you the rho AB partial transposition. So that will be also a Hermitian matrix. You calculate its determinant, okay, and that will be equal to this quantity. It can be shown that. And it is known that for a 2 qubit density matrix, the determinant of its partial transposition is either greater than equal to 0 or less than 0. I mean, that is the only thing you can have. If it is greater than equal to 0, the state is separable. If it is negative, it is entangled. There is no ambiguity about it. So this is a necessary sufficient condition. So you see that by calculating this trace of WU and then 4 copies of rho AB, if I can figure out its signature, then I can figure out whether this rho AB is entangled or separate. So that is the idea. Now this problem is that this is, so therefore WU is a Hermitian operator and it is a unique Hermitian operator. It doesn't depend upon rho. Okay, so it can detect entanglement in arbitrary 2 qubit state rho AB, right? So that is fine. So this is in some sense universal witnessing of 2 qubit entanglement. Now the problem is that WU, how will you implement? Because in order to calculate this trace, you'll have to perform measurement of WU on 4 copies of this state. And in order to perform measurement of this WU, you'll have to design some measuring apparatus. And we know in quantum theory, measurements are always noisy. Therefore, it may happen that a measurement, that a state rho AB is actually separable, but because of the noisy measurement of WU, this quantity trace of WU rho AB 4 copies turns out to be negative. Okay, that may happen, and that will give you completely wrong result. Okay, so in quantum information theory, people are very much serious, very much concerned about error in a noise in measurement or error in measurement, and therefore one should develop some scheme of detecting entanglement or witnessing entanglement, taking into account that there will be errors in measurement. And such a scheme is known as measurement device independent entanglement witness scheme. And that was developed by the Cyril Branchiard and company. Okay, so what we have done, we have taken this measurement device independent scheme of Cyril Branchiard and company, but their scheme was dependent on the information about the state. So you need to know the state applied. So what we have done, we have taken their scheme of measurement device independent entanglement witness and then use this entanglement witness, universal entanglement witness operator WU, and develop a measurement device independent scheme for detecting entanglement in arbitrary 2 qubit state. So you don't have to know what the 2 qubit state is, and there you may allow any error in the measurements setup. Okay, so this is our first work. I'll not have time to go through the details of this. If you are interested, I'll give you in the end the references. Okay. So the point is that in this work also, in that particular work, so this we have done with one of our former PhD student, Arindam Malik. It is known that if the total dimension of your system, dA times dB, is greater than 6, then to decide whether the state is separable or entangled is itself is a hard problem. And what we have conjectured is that if your dimension is greater than dAdB is greater than 6, you cannot have a universal entanglement witness scheme. Okay, so that is our conjecture. But what we have done here, interestingly, is that even if your dimension is greater than 6, a total dimension, you can decide whether the state has positive partial transposition or negative partial transposition without knowing the state and using a measurement device independent scheme. Okay, and what is the benefit of it? Because when a state has negative partial transposition, we know that this is entangled. If it has positive partial transposition, it can be entangled or separable. We cannot do much. But when it has NPT, negative partial transposition, we can decide whether it is, we can easily decide whether it is entangled or not. Okay, so that is something which we have done. Okay, so the next scheme is, so earlier scheme, you remember, it took 4 copies of this state. So we then thought, is it possible to reduce the number of copies? Why? Because, preparing more copies itself is a costly affair. So what we have done is we have used this notion of weak measurement and weak values. So weak measurement basically is a system and apparatus, they are interacting quite weakly. And then people like, Aronov, Anandan, and Weidman, they developed this notion of weak values, which for an observable AW rho phi is defined in this way. So you take the overlap of a rho with respect to phi and divide it by the overlap of rho with respect to phi. So you can see that this is in general a complex number, and the magnitude of this complex number can go well beyond the spectrum of this observable A. And this is what is known as weak values. So there are plenty of applications of weak values. So what we have done, we have used this notion of weak value, and by using 2 copies of your 2-qubit state, we have developed a scheme of witnessing entanglement in this rho AB without knowing the state. You don't have to know the state. Okay. Unfortunately, the scheme also turns out to be state tomography. So actually, by this process, you will also know the state itself. And we have shown that this scheme is robust under errors in measurement and all that. So again, I am not going into the full details. Next, let me talk about this is an ongoing work. This work will be put up very soon in the archive. So this is about detecting entanglement in 2-mode Gaussian states. So like, 2 harmonic oscillators together. So these 2-mode Gaussian states are easy to prepare in lab, and they have plenty of applications. Okay. So basically, you can think of these as the states of 2 modes of radiation field, quantized radiation field. Okay. So a 2-mode Gaussian state rho AB, it is characterized by its phase-space distribution function, namely its Wigner distribution function W rho 1 2 xi, which has this form, which is basically this factor normalizing factor times exponential of this function. So the xi vector is the vector of these parameters Q1, P1, Q2, P2, and R vector is the vector of these operators, position, momentum, position of the first mode Q1, then P1, momentum, then Q2 and P2, or you can call it as quadrature also. Okay, and this is the R, the average value of R. It is basically the individual average values with respect to rho. And we know that these RK, RL, they satisfy this commutation relation, where J is nothing but these matrix. So sigma I sigma Y, direct sum I sigma Y. This gamma rho 1 2, this is the covariance matrix. So you see this R, average value of R, these are the mean values, and this gamma, they will give you the covariance matrix of this. So you see the 2-mode Gaussian state is described completely by the mean values and the covariance matrix. Okay. So it was Simon who was our, Simon was colleague. So in 2002, he gave provided a necessary and sufficient condition for testing separability of any two-mode Gaussian state. And it is known that this two-mode Gaussian state is a separable if I take the partial transposition with respect to the mode 2, then this should be again a bona fide state. And this partial transposition means in phase space is basically partial mirror reflection. So P2 will go to minus P2. Okay. In fact, it's a bona fide Gaussian state, two-mode Gaussian state means the covariance matrix plus I by 2 times J has to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay. And under the partial transposition, it will go to like this. So where this lambda, capital lambda, this corresponds to lambda, gamma, lambda transpose plus I by 2j. This has to be greater than or equal to 0 under partial transposition. So this lambda, it is basically the canonical transformation corresponding to partial phase space mirror reflection. So more specifically, the necessary and sufficient condition for a two-mode Gaussian state to be entangled is that this quantity t minus 4 times determinant of rho, it has to be greater than 1 by 4, where d is nothing but determinant of A plus determinant of B minus twice determinant of C. And what is ABC? Basically, you write your covariance matrix in this block matrix of 2 by 2 submatrices, A, C, C transpose B. All of them are real matrices. In fact, A and B are positive definite matrices. Okay, so this is the condition, d minus 4 times determinant of gamma has to be greater than 1 by 4 for entanglement and less than or equal to 1 by 4 for separability of two-mode Gaussian state. So this is the condition. I don't know whether you can see these things. So what we have done here is based on this necessary sufficient condition, mathematical condition for separability of two-mode Gaussian state, we have developed a scheme for detecting entanglement, missing entanglement in two-mode Gaussian state via measurement of intensities. So, for example, in this figure on the left-hand side in A part, it is the detection of covariance matrix for a single-mode Gaussian state, for which you have AK is the mode of your Gaussian state, and AR is some classical local oscillator, which in general considered to be of high intensity or brightness, and then you put a phase here, phi. You pass through a 50-50 beam splitter and then look at the output modes A1 and A2 tilde, A1 tilde, A2 tilde, and then you do the intensity measurement, basically A2 tilde dagger A2 tilde and A1 tilde dagger A1 tilde. And then take the difference of these intensities I1 and I2, and this is how we do the homodyne detection. And using this homodyne detection, one can figure out a two-mode, single-mode covariance matrix. So this was known in the literature. What we have done, we have generalized it in the case of two modes. So what is it? So basically, you have the two-mode Gaussian state. Okay, you have this A1 and A2. These are the two-mode Gaussian state. Pass them through the beam splitter, 50-50 beam splitter, and here is the one output mode, which again pass through another 50-50 beam splitter BS3 with a classical, oscillator, local oscillator AD, which can be a laser field or whatever. Similarly, here BS2, through this BS2 you pass this AC, another local oscillator, which may be bright light source or non-bright light source, and then in the end you perform the intensity measurements. Okay, so by doing this, one can figure out the elements of the covariance matrix for two-mode Gaussian state as well as the mean values, and therefore you can figure out the determinants, the determinant A, determinant B, determinant C, determinant of gamma, and thereby entanglement. But in this scheme, actually you have done state tomography. In fact, this is a belief that using single copy of a bipartite state, if you want to have universal entanglement detection scheme, it will lead to state tomography. So you will get to know the state also. Okay, so that was the idea. Okay, so the question is that can we do better? That means without doing state tomography, can we detect entanglement in a two-mode Gaussian state in a universal fashion? Okay, so for that, what we have done, So in this case, we have used 2 copies of the 2-mode Gaussian state. So for example, what we have done is we have used this notion of swap operator. So this is for 1 + 1 mode swap operator. What it does on the Fock states m cross n, the single mode swap operator, it gives you n cross n. So just interchanges on the states. Okay. So if I have this swap operator, this is a Hermitian operator, so you can perform in principle measurement of it. So if I perform measurement of the swap operator on 2 copies of the reduced states of the first mode, rho 1, tensor rho 1, these are the reduced states, and similarly perform measurement of the swap operator on 2 copies of the reduced states of the second mode, rho 2, tensor rho 2, then and also measurement of the swap operator of 2 + 2 mode on 2 copies of your original state, rho 1, 2. So this is the 2-mode swap operator, STM, 2 copies. You see that if I perform single mode swap of 1 + 1 mode swap operator on 2 copies of the reduced state of the first mode, it will give me 1 by square root of determinant of A. Similarly, it will, this one, second one will give me 1 by square root of determinant of B. And the third one will give me 1 by square root of determinant of gamma. So in this formula for necessary sufficient condition for detection of entanglement in 2-mode Gaussian state, I have got determinant A, determinant B, determinant gamma by performing measurement of swap operators on 2 copies of the states. Okay, and now I can perform, basically I can find out the matrix C. You remember this gamma was A, C, C transpose B. So I can also find out this C. Now for that, again, I need 2 copies of the 2-mode Gaussian state, but this time I need a nonlinear gadget. So beam splitter, you know, it's a passive linear optical gadget. Here I need this optical parametric amplifier, which is a nonlinear gadget. Basically, it's a SU11 gadget. Okay. So for both the modes, what I'll do is basically the 2 copies of the reduced state of first mode I'll send through this OPA, one OPA. Similarly, 2 copies of the reduced state second mode I send through another OPA. Okay, and then I do again intensity measurements. By doing that, I can get C, and as I get C, I'll get determinant of C. So by this process, by using 2 copies of the 2-mode Gaussian state and performing measurement of swap operator and thereby intensity measurement, I'll get to know whether the state is entangled or separate. But I don't. So in this process, we don't have to know the state, and this is better than state tomography. Okay, so that was the end of my talk. So here are some references. So this, as I said, the first work, this theoretical work on universal measurement device independent scheme, witness scheme for 2 qubits. This was done by Arindam Malik and myself. This is the paper. Some experimental proposals are in progress for realizing this scheme with 2 degrees of freedom, namely polarization and spatial degree of freedom of photons, 2 photons. This is with my ex-student Sandeep Goyal and my colleague in PRL. These are some of the review articles on entanglement witness operator, also for nonlinear entanglement witnesses. And then these are some of the references of universal entanglement witnesses. So this one, is Goswami, Chakraborty, myself, and Archan Majumdar. This is on the witnessing entanglement with 2 copies using weak measurement. And the last one is with Arijit Datta, J1 team, myself, and Ritabrata Sengupta. So this is on witnessing entanglement in 2-mode Gaussian state in a universal fashion, and it will be put up very soon in the archive. So our next scheme will be to develop a measurement device independent scheme for these 2-mode Gaussian state universal entanglement witness. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shivashishta. So if there are further questions, you can please unmute and ask.
Subhashish, I have a question.
Yeah.
See, you needed 4 copies in finding universal entanglement operator.
Yes, yes.
So what is the stability of this analysis if the 4 copies are not identical? Suppose there are tiny differences between the 4 copies, how does it affect the result?
Yes. So this measurement device independent scheme, it actually takes into account the fact that the 4 copies are identical. Okay.
So my question is, if they are not identical,
Right. So if they are not identical, then we'll have to go beyond measurement device independent scheme, which is called device independent scheme. Okay. And this device independent scheme for witnessing entanglement has not been developed so far, except, I mean, not for all these states. I mean, because we are talking about universal. But
because experimentally it may be difficult to prepare identical.
Exactly.
Maybe some mixture.
Yes. So
Okay,
for device independent scheme, I can say that if I can get violation of like Bell type inequalities, then that is a device independent scheme for detecting entanglement. But again, that is not universal. So device independent scheme for detecting entanglement universally has not yet been developed, and I think it is very, very difficult.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? I do not see any. So I should mention that Shivashis is a regular contributor to the ISD Institute Seminar Day talks. So it's glad that he could finally give a talk in spite of so much work he has to do. And thanks a lot, Shivashis, for contributing to the Institute Seminar Days.
Thank you very much.